can't hear.
Yeah.
Okay, hi, welcome everyone. So we're here for the uh, debate session. So we have Rashwan and Kyla here, as well as our office bearers, Ali and Lila here as well. So um, without further ado, I want to brief the audience about the itinerary for today. So now we're in the uh, introduction. So next is opening statement, and the candidates have 5 minutes to do so. And oh, this is sorry, there's a technical issue. So there will not have any cross examination here. We'll jump straight into the Q&A session from the office bearers, and followed by the Q&A session from the students themselves. And we'll end the session with the closing statement from the candidate. All right. Okay, so for the audience, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop your questions down in the comment section below. And without further ado, we'll move on to the opening statement uh, session. Candidates, you have 5 minutes to do yours.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Kayla. I'm from Indonesia.
And I'm Rashwan. I'm from the Maldives.
And we're running for the position of MUISS heads for the year 2022.
Now, we both come from different backgrounds and different parts of the world. Regardless, our experiences with diverse communities is one thing we share as a similarity. We both grew up in international schools and share a love towards learning about different cultures.
Another common ground that we both share is that we are both a people's person. And furthermore, we both have leadership experience as we both took part in student council throughout high school. And we're both currently in MUSA, where Rashwan is actually the MUISS activities subcom. And I myself is in the CNS sports department.
Now, we believe that our different backgrounds and similar qualities will be our wow factor. We aim to intertwine our experiences to create the perfect combination that we believe will help lead MUIS and take it to the next level. Now, as MUIS heads, we aim to create an environment where no student feels left out. We understand that there are so many different cultures in Monash, and rather than feel challenged, we feel excited as representing these cultures will be an honor.
And one of our main goals is to create a safe and comfortable space and environment for all international students, and a second home away from home for all the international students in Monash.
Now, next year, hopefully, we will return to campus. However, this brings forth a challenge that we haven't faced before, which is transitioning from an online learning environment to an offline on campus experience. We understand the challenges that we will face, and as mentioned in our manifesto, we will ensure that this transition goes as smoothly as possible.
And moving to another country or going to college as it is scary enough. Furthermore, these past 2 years we've had an online learning, and we both know how challenging it will be moving to another country and transforming to an offline learning, especially with all the regulations that's coming right now. It is most likely that international students will be going to Malaysia alone if the borders remain closed for visitors. This is a stronger reason that made us want to provide new and existing students with informations and guidelines as detailed as possible through our media platforms and students sharing their experiences. And we want to do as much as we can to reduce that fear and make you guys feel safe, even if it's just by a little bit.
Now, regardless of your country, culture, and tradition, we will ensure that you are represented and that your voice is heard. We'll eliminate the barriers in communication between the students and MUIS, and we want to focus on the fact that if we are elected, we're elected by the students to serve the students. You will never feel like it's the other way around. We understand that you will face struggles, and we want you to know that MUIS will be a division that you can rely on when you need us the most.
And the most essential thing that both Rashwan and I can offer is that we are both very approachable so that international students can come for us whenever they need help. And we will be doing this through initiatives that Rashwan will follow up.
Now, we aim to introduce new initiatives with our departments, such as Country Spotlight with the CROs, a talk show like event led by the Welfare Department, and additional initiatives that are aimed towards increasing engagement between MUIS and the student community by our media department. Also, if the COVID situation does get better, we plan to have a couple trips as well.
Yes, we plan to create an open carnival where there can be countries opening up booth, an open stage for concerts, and there can also be carnival games as well for both new and international students and existing students. Our aim for this carnival is for students to mingle and learn from each other, in each other cultures and even meet friends from the same country as well. Because as we said, we want to create a second home away from home. We also want to have an initiative where our office is open to students and they can come in whenever they feel like and just talk to us directly. And for online students, we will conduct it online and reach out to students rather than wait for them to reach out to us.
Now, these are only some of the many initiatives that we hope to bring to our international students. Regardless of the size of your country and your country's community, you will always be a part of the MUIS community where you will be welcomed and celebrated. With this, we will conclude and we would love to take some questions.
Yes, thank you so much for listening, and we were looking forward to the stuff that you guys are gonna ask.
Oh, right. Thank you for the opening statement. So now we'll have the Q&A session by the office bearer. So yeah, the floor is yours, Ali and Nadida.
All right, thank you. So I hope you guys can hear me. So I'll just start off with my first question. As you guys will be potential heads for the next year, what do you think are the core responsibilities of MUIS head? You want to elaborate on that, please?
Sure. So I'll
Right.
go first. Now, apart from the constitutional responsibilities, which means that we have to be the liaison between the student administration and the international student, we also need to ensure that the international student community understands that their voice is being heard. We have to be that bridge between the administration and the student. Moreover, Kayla will be elaborating a little bit more.
Yes, so we know that us being heads, that position will be the link not only between students to international students to the campus, we will also be the link between international students as a whole to MUSA as well. Basically, we will be the bridge of everything. So we really want to be the voice of all these international students in Monash.
Apart from that, we also need to make sure that our initiatives and our events keep the interest of the international students at heart because it's not about endorsing our own ideas and getting our own agenda across. We need to make sure that MUIS as a department and a division always has the best interest of the international student community in mind. I hope that answers your question.
All right. Okay. Thank you for the answer. So I'll ask my another question, which is that so what we have faced in this year is participation as one of the greatest challenge, and that issue was also there last year as well. So apart from what we all the efforts MUIS 2021 has done, what how would you do things differently to engage more audience or the international students? What are your plans of doing things differently? Yeah.
So when it comes to participation rates, we feel like what we could change is mostly within the media department. Now, if you attended Omar's debate, he talked a lot about the different initiatives that the media department would be, taking part in. But mainly the whole issue was that the response rate that we got from students, it was quite low, right? So our goal would be to consistently just reach out to these students when it's online because we feel like if we just reach out to them like just one time, it's not enough. And also utilizing other platforms, which Kayla could be going into a bit more.
Yes, so if you listen to our editors' debate as well, we plan to utilize new platforms such as TikTok, Instagram Reels, and a lot of those, and basically keeping up with what's on trend because we know it right now in the online, the pandemic situation, people are more getting into the platforms and everything about social medias, right? So we plan to create even more engaging um, stuff feeds and like posts to get that engagement in, and with consistency we believe that this is very possible.
And also to add to that, we have this event with our welfare department, which is basically like a talk show like initiative where we will be referring to a Padlet that we make open to all the international students, where basically we would choose a topic and they get to discuss that topic. And during the talk show like event, our welfare officer along with a guest will be discussing these topics. So basically that creates this link between the students and MUIS where they feel like the interaction is a lot better, which would encourage them to reach out to us a lot more. So basically have booster events like that, which showcases the interaction between MOIS and the students.
Also, on top of that,
Okay.
Rashwan, I think we should mention about the WhatsApp voice that we want to reintroduce. Can you elaborate on that as well?
So What's Up MOIS is this initiative with our editors where they'll basically be getting news and basically the most recent news from different countries where different students belong to. They'll be working with the CRs and other students from those countries as well. The whole aim is to make us feel more interconnected as like a whole MOIS group, even though we're different students are from different places. The whole goal is to bring everyone together, and we feel like this could help boost the interaction rates as well. That's all.
Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds fair. Just a follow up on that. So, sometimes if you keep on posting a lot of stuff and like keep on uh, keep on posting stuff continuously, there might be students who get, like they just don't want to see it. So, how will you make sure that the balance is created, that you're not having very less posts or very less engagement, or you are, overdoing it just so the students can, just like get annoyed by it? So how would you create a balance on that?
That's a great question.
Right.
So, to approach this, we would be breaking it down into smaller groups. For example, there are different students from different countries, right? We reach out to the CRs because CRs always have group chats with students, right? I feel like if we increase the engagement within those CR groups, between the CRs and the students, it would also help a lot. Kayla, do you want to elaborate a bit more?
Yeah, so these CRs, they have their own group chats, they have their own community, and we don't always have to use social media to promote in the sense that some of these group chats are very active itself. So actually promoting it from these group chats are a lot more effective than posting it in our media platforms. And moreover, we also mentioned how we want to utilize other media platforms like TikTok, which has not really been done before, and those kind of stuff. So we won't be posting every single thing in our IG or in our TikTok. It will be depending on the event itself and whichever way is more effective for the post itself. So, for
Yeah, it
example, if
depends
we
on the
have a,
event.
yeah, it depends on the event itself.
All right. Okay. That sounds fair. Um, Another question would be, so, you guys are the bridge between the MUIS committee and the external parties, which are Student Life or other MUSA members. So there must be times when, there are events planned by your committee members, but the external parties are not allowing it, or there are a lot of restrictions such as budget restriction or location wise restriction. So, how do you intend to reconcile the demands of your members with the restrictions from other parties?
All right, Rashwan, do you mind if I go first? Okay, so firstly, we need to discuss within the team itself because internally we should all be on the same page before we approach other outsiders. So we will discuss within the team that make sure we're on the same page, we all have the same understandings, and we have the same opinions. Write it down or something, like record of the meeting or writing it down to make sure everyone is aware on what is happening. And Rashwan, do you want to follow up on this?
Yeah, so regarding like budgets and other constraints, we have a team of members already where we feel like they all have a level of professionalism where they understand that certain things, it's just not in our hand when it comes to budget. There is only an extent to what we can influence the budget, right? So we will have prior discussions, and we feel like the main way that we can combat this issue and conflicts arising is prior communication and understanding between all the members within MOIS and all of the external parties. We feel like if there is an issue where we need, let's say, more budget, firstly, just write everything down, make sure that we aren't missing anything out. And then, given the constraints, we'll compromise. So, compromise is a big thing. We'll be starting everything early on so that we have time to compromise and adapt to the changes that we have to make.
Okay, so a follow up on that. So, for example, activities, MUIS activities plan an amazing event, and on the other side, there's an event, a country event, or a CRO event. So, how would you prioritize? How would you make both parties happy, and make sure that no one is feel like left out or everyone is treated fairly? So, in the events prioritization, or how would you do that?
It's a good question. So, in terms of prioritizing events, we feel like we have to look at the facts, the expected attendance rate, the outreach that we are basically aiming for. So, when it comes to events, they all have like a specific purpose, right? And a specific expected attendance. So if it was an event where, let's say, we're expecting like 50, 60 students, and then there's another event where I expect like 30 students, we will be prioritizing the event that we have more expected attendance for. However, that does not mean we won't be thinking about the other event as well. I let Kayla elaborate a bit more on the details.
Right. Yeah. So we do have events for, as we mentioned in our manifesto, we want to make everyone feel as represented as possible. So we do have events for those smaller countries as well. And in terms of clashes, which is why we said we want internal communication to be as effective as possible to make sure there are no clashing dates with the smallest possible. We by paying in those details, we believe that we can make all of the events as maximized as possible within priority that itself, depending on the amount of people and depending on the scaling of the events itself.
Okay, okay,
So
yeah.
I hope
I
that
think
answers
I'll
your
give the
question.
floor to Nida. Yeah, Nida, you wanna go ahead with
Yeah.
the questions now?
Hello. Hello, guys. Okay, so
Hi.
in the opening statement, you guys said that you have the experience of working in a diverse environment and you have a knowledge of the diverse culture. Can you elaborate on that? What kind of experience, what kind of knowledge do you have of like diverse cultures and around the world?
Kayla, do you want to go first?
All right, yeah. So I grew up in an international school ever since I was in primary, and I was always being the student council. So with that in mind, in that international school, there was like a lot of people coming from different places, especially because I don't exactly live in the capital city. So everyone who was foreigners, everyone who was international, just stays there. So that's how I got my diversity environment. And growing up with them made me appreciate all different cultures, have respect for all different cultures, and in terms of leadership, I've always been the student council, part of the student council growing up. And also, even now, I entered Monash. I'm actually involved into different organizations as well. And I'm also a subcom in the CNS department. So, Rashwan can also say his experience now.
Yep. So just like Kayla, I also went to an international school and I was exposed to a lot of different cultures. I took part in multiple different competitions, which was in a lot of different parts of the world where I met people from different places and I grew my love towards learning different traditions, cultures, and different parts of the world. And in terms of the most relevant experience, I feel like that would be the experience that I had as a MUISS activities subcom, because this helped me really understand what goes into making an event, what goes into planning an event, and stuff like that. And in terms of leadership, I too was in a student council as well. So I feel like this diverse background that both of us have really does give us the experience that we need to lead MUISS.
All right. My next question is more directed to Kayla. Correct me if I'm wrong. You said that you were not part of MUIS prior to this, right? So why MUIS now, and why, especially why head of MUIS?
I've actually always been interested in the international student services, and I've always wanted to go, but then I missed out the election. Like, I didn't know that there was an open recruitment in this last semester because as I said, with this whole pandemic situation, it's quite hard to gain information. So now that I've actually given the opportunity to actually run for it, I was like, what, all in or nothing, let's go, because I do have diversity background, I do have leadership skills. I feel like everything that I have in my experience, in my life experience, I can contribute a lot to the international student services, and I feel like it will go to waste if I don't run for it, which is why I want to do it now that I do have the chance for it.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like your position was being wasted when you were under a CNS officer,
Definitely
or
not,
were you
because
able
when
to
I was
equally contribute
oh
there? It's the
Oh
country?
yeah. So in the CNS, sorry, so in the CNS department, I'm in sports subcom, and it's actually it's really diverse as well. And we get to study, learn from the external party, and I'm also, being in charge of the Monash Cup as well. I actually learn a lot, with the sports, with the esports, with the publicity, everything. It's an all rounder. So I actually get to learn a lot of new skills that I feel like can even further help me manage MUIS, because all of this stuff I learned, they would definitely do not go to waste. They even add into my knowledge as well now. So I hope that answers
Right.
the question.
Yeah. Now, to both of you, as heads, you said that you're going to make every minority even feel represented. So, how are you going to do that?
So I'll take the question first, Kayla. So the
Mm-hmm.
thing is, we understand that in the past there were a lot of issues where some communities felt like they weren't being represented enough, right? So basically, with MUIS, we're going to be having a booth on campus this time if we were to get back on campus, where we'll be working with the CRO department to reach out to students of these communities. We'll be giving them an opportunity to host the booth for a certain amount of time. Now, we understand that the students themselves might not reach out to us, so we'll be reaching out to these students consistently, making sure that they know that they have the opportunity to display their culture with this booth. Kayla, could you elaborate on the online perspective that we have on this initiative?
Yeah, on the online side of this question, we right now we have the country spotlight, and we plan to continue to manage that and further develop that. With the details, of course, we're going to discuss it furthermore with our CRO's department and our media department. I hope that answers
And
your
also,
question.
p- particularly to add on to that, when we go through with events for smaller communities, our CRO department will be encouraging the CRs to make these events open to all international students and not just students of that specific community. Because we feel like in order to fully represent a culture, you should make the events open to other people as well, so that they're able to gain more knowledge in this country as well. So, also when it comes to promoting the event, the media department will be approaching events to smaller communities differently, like starting promoting the events earlier and putting in a lot bit more work just to give this community like a little bit more nudge that they need to get the outreach that they need. I hope
Right.
that answers your question.
Yeah, like you said, during an offline one, you're going to go and approach them. Now, what happens during an online one is that that approach won't necessarily work because first you don't have the data to, uh, you know, all the students, which country they come from or anything like that. So how do you approach them? How do you get that data? Like you can't expect, anyone to come to you, especially during an online semester. So how do you know which country or which nationality or which culture is being underrepresented?
Well, the thing is, we've already been reaching out to different students. For example, with the Middle East, a lot of countries feel like they could have the opportunity to display their country a bit better. In terms of Southeast Asia, I think during the last year's debate, they also brought up the fact that certain countries in Southeast Asia want more representation. So when it comes to this, we feel like if we listen to the students enough, we are able to identify communities that feel like they aren't getting enough representation, and we understand students won't be coming to us. So we'll be working with the CRO department and the CRs as well. I understand that some countries themselves don't have a CR because they're broken down into regions, right? So we'll be reaching out to the students from these groups because they don't have a CR. They have like a region CR basically. So we will be reaching out to the students. And the main point is that we want them to know that we are giving them every single opportunity to represent that community. So it does come down to how much they want as well. But on our side, we will be giving them every single opportunity that we can.
So let's say that while you guys are, going through a CR recruitment, and there are a large number of, regions and countries which do not have CRs, or there are CRs who do not want to represent a region; they just want to represent their country. How would you go about that?
Well, in terms of the particulars for CR appointment, I feel like the CROs would have a much better understanding. So we would definitely have to consult with them on how to deal with this situation. But I feel like there is a way to compromise in any single way. For example, the country, the CR wants to represent the specific country. we want to talk to them, find out why they want to do that, because we firstly want to understand why they want to do so. And then we realize that like there are countries that don't have CRs, and then we will try to group them together as a region and try to appoint a CR from that. Kayla, do you want to add anything?
I believe like you said it all the points that I wanted to say. It is not quite we do feel like the CR department will be answering this question much better, but on our ends, that's what we can do at most.
Yeah, I'm aware that the CR department would be better suited to answer this question. But why I directed it to you is because at the end of the day, you guys will be representing the whole division. So the first person to everyone is going to come to or ask questions to is you guys. So how would you answer it to them, that why is my country not being represented, or why do I have a region officer to look after my country, why don't I have someone who has better knowledge of my country to represent me, and stuff like that is going to come up, and it's inevitable, it's going to come up. So from experience, I just wanted to let you guys know that's just the tip of the iceberg, like, of all the issues that you guys could face.
Well, if
So
a
yeah.
student feels as though they aren't being represented, that country isn't being represented, firstly, just be transparent with them, communicate with them. We'll talk about how there is a lack of students and we're trying to find people to represent your country. Are you interested in being the CR? Do you want to have your own CR? Is there anybody that you know that will be willing to take up this position? Because our goal is representation. We don't want to make them feel like, oh, we don't want to give you the opportunity. So just make sure that those students know that we are trying and that we would obviously appreciate help if they could help as well.
Right, that's one way to go about it, but not necessarily that, just how easy it is for a big country to get represented and get representatives. That's what they would expect from you guys as well. So other than that, why do you think this whole separate division of MUISS should exist? Like, why do we need these many officers? Because if you look at all the other divisions, CNS does not have elections for secretary and all the other positions. So why do you think MUISS should exist separately, and how are you planning to maintain the independency of this division? Because of all, if you guys have knowledge of the past, how we've been trying, I mean, not us, but the association has been trying to combine these divisions together and bring it under one body. And why do you still think that MUISS should be a separate division?
All right.
Kayla, do you want to go
So
first?
I'll first be going with the first part of the question. Us international students, we go through different things than the rest. We move abroad to another country, we go to another phase of our life. So with that being kept in mind, we definitely need more support, which is why we have like a debate for our secretary. We have a debate for every single head of division in MUIS itself, because we need that specialty to ensure that we really are doing our best to give the services to the international students community. And on the later part of that question, Rashwan, do you want to follow up?
Yep, sure. So you talked about how we'll make sure that we maintain our independence, right? So we feel like the key to this is a clear understanding between the other MUSA departments as well. So far, we're running with the party Ignitas, where we have communicated a lot with the MUSA president candidate as well, where I've made like the ideas for Moise clear. Me and Kayla have spoken to him as well. So there's a pretty good level of understanding where we realize that MUISS is an important division as well, and the association as a whole does understand that. So we're starting off on a good note, basically. So I hope that answers your question. But to elaborate, yes, we will always keep the interests of the international students in mind, and we will defend that as much as we can.
Right.
To just follow up on that, okay, so this is just, it's not for sure yet. It's still hypothetical that your president will be who you just said it was. Let's say it's not, and it's going to be someone else, and that person does not agree with you. How are you going to fight for your division?
Well, communication is so important. So if that person does
Mhm.
not agree with them, as per the constitution, when it comes to MUIS itself, the heads do get the final say. We make the decisions, and we will be making sure that we maintain our independence to the limit that we need it as much. Because if they don't agree, there are things in the constitution whereby we are given a certain level of independence. So we will be focusing on that a lot.
Right. Sorry to interrupt. Just a reminder for the audience. Please do drop any questions you have for the candidates. Yeah. All right. So for the meantime, OBs, if you have any more questions, you can proceed.
All right, thank you. Okay. Um, okay, so this is again directed to Kayla. You have a reputation for being a popular Indonesian. I believe your public profile is in that way. And one thing you need to know is that once you guys are heads, if um, you become kind of your public figure, your public life, your private life, everything is going to be looked into. So you converse in your own language, and your public figure is mainly catered to an Indonesian audience. So, how do you think other international students would feel about you heading a diverse team?
I feel like they will appreciate the fact that I do have another career before this, and I'm still doing this on top of that, and even promoting this more to the audience that I already previously had. So I would say it's not a weakness. Instead, it's a benefit for me because I do have an audience. I can share all these things about MUISS to the audience that I already have. I can talk more about diversity that we MUISS have to the audience that I already previously had. So I feel like it's going to be a benefit for me instead of a weakness.
I wouldn't necessarily say it was weakness. I was just saying, how would you ensure these international students that you're not biased or you will not favor your country in situations through your actions?
Mm.
Because as of now, your attention is just on Indonesians.
So even now with our whole team, we have recruited the best possible team possible. So we do have each other's back to remind ourselves if that condition is gonna happen, which I believe will not ever happen. But if that do happen in that situation, I do have the team. We do have a team, a really strong team to like remind me that hey, you're doing this wrong. Hey, you're doing this wrong. And I also have Rush One to have like to got my back in that department as well.
Um, that's really nice. I mean, since you're the head, who will be the head of the division, I feel like
Mhm.
by the time that mistake is, if such a mistake is made, it will be too late to go back in time and change that. Because once someone feels that a head is being favored to his or her own country, then there is no going back from that. You cannot change just what happened and put rest of that burden onto your team. But um, so you're saying that your party, your MUISS division of the party, was particularly formed on the basis of chemistry between the members. How are you going to ensure that your team will be diverse when you have recruitment for subcoms and when you have recruitment in general? How would you make sure that your team is diverse with students from different nationalities and culture and recruit in the best interest of international students?
Could I answer this question, Kayla? So when it comes to
Yes, you can
diversity
say.
and how our MUISS team was formed, we actually had a process of elimination where we had a lot of internal voting itself to decide who the different members were going to be. So we didn't just appoint members, we had different voting systems based. So students voted for us, and the internal voting was really important to decide who was going to be the final MUISS team. Now, in terms of making sure that our team is diverse based on subcommittee members, now the different OBs that are interviewing the subcommittee members will obviously be informed that diversity is literally what we stand for. It's something that we want to endorse quite a lot. So we will be basing like for subcoms, our departments will be choosing people based on their strengths, not from where they're from. So in terms of that, diversity will definitely be a key. So our members will make diversity a big point when it comes to electing and appointing subcommittee members.
Okay, just to follow up on that. So you said that there was internal voting and stuff like that. So basically, you guys were the ones to decide who would represent which office bearer and stuff like that. So it was basically, at the end of the day, it's based on who, not if not a popularity contest, it's more of who you're comfortable with. or who you guys thought was best. You guys were the judge of all of that. So that's more of something that international students of Monash should be doing, because they need to decide who is best fit to represent a role. Um, so, how do you still think that the decision that you guys made was the best one?
Well, the decision that we
Well,
made chose the candidates that would be going in. We would still have the elections where the students get to see the OBs themselves and then choose the OBs that they want to represent. Students do have the right to abstain from voting if they do not think that the OBs fit for the position. Kayla, do you want
yes,
to
and
elaborate a
everyone do
bit more?
have yeah, and everyone do have the ability to run independently as well. It wasn't the only choice to do this the way we did it. There was still another opportunity that they could run independently. So there was a chance for that, more choices available. And at the end of the day, is what Rashwan said. They will all still be voting for us.
Yeah. So, don't you think that you guys made your first step of biasness when you chose the members that you want to elect? I mean, you want to keep in your party.
I wouldn't say it was
Sorry.
biasness because, in terms of voting, it wasn't like just me and Kayla had an internal voting. So basically, we had different people who wanted to go for different positions. After that, we had debates between the two people who wanted to go for the same position, which after that, we had a voting system internally where was everyone that was in the debate itself got to vote, right? So I wouldn't say that this would be biased because, let's say, for example, there were two people who wanted to go for the position, and I was like, I want that person to go for it. That's what biasness would be. Basically, we took the vote for everyone in the MUISS team itself. I feel like there was no other way to go about this without being biased. This would basically be like the most suitable way to go about this.
Right. Sorry to interrupt. For the next question, Ali, you can go on.
All right. So Nida mentioned about like Kayla's, like, you are a public figure and you have more than like 20K followers on Instagram. So one of the challenge office bearers, I wouldn't say challenge, but a responsibility is that when you come into office, you are a public figure as well, right? And you have to, like, make sure that every step you take or every decision or even in your personal life, whatever you do, people are going to watch out for you and they are going to follow whatever you're doing. So this is directed to both of you actually, that how would you make sure that you have a balance of both? And I'm keen to know more about this from Kayla, especially since you have the background. So yeah.
All right. So, a little bit of information. I've always gone through this other career in my life around 3 years ago. So I am quite used to having a personal life on top of having that kind of like a figure being looked at. So I've always looked at my actions, even with what I'm doing with my personal life, to make sure that I'm not, whatever I'm doing is still the best responsibility, the best actions that I could possibly have. And in terms of separating personal and professional work life, I feel like I enjoy every single thing I do. So, and I always set boundaries. For example, um, at this time to this time will be my personal time moment. So, I don't feel like it's going to be a burden or another responsibility to look at because I am used to, having that separate personal life and professional life. Does that answer your question? I'm very sorry if that does not answer your question.
Yeah. Yes. What about you, Rashwan?
So I feel like I wouldn't understand the certain things that Kayla would be saying because it's very different, right? But technically speaking, I've always approached things with a certain level of boundaries, whereby I realize that the stuff that I put on social media does represent the person that I am, and especially when I'm leading, like if I do become the head and I'm leading MUIS with Kayla, I have to be really careful and professional in terms of what I put out there because during my term in office, as much as I wanted to just be my personal life, the things that are in my personal life does reflect on Moise as a whole as well. So I will definitely be approaching it with a certain level of professionalism.
Okay, fair enough. Another question would be, so as you guys know that you pretty much are the only candidates right now, right? You're uncontested. So how can we be assured that you'll be doing your job as you guys said, and like, not you're not just in it for the glam of it. So yeah.
Kayla, do you want to go first?
All right. So when we go for this position, we know all the responsibilities that we will have in our hands, and we do work on the best interest of national students. We both have that passion, which is why we are running for the head of MUISS. So we can ensure that we will be giving all of our experiences and all of our talent in order to create the best possible way and basically relive our manifestos into real life.
And to add to this, we are running with the party as well. So there was a sense of accountability because before we became a part of the party, we did have interviews as well. So we have people within the party that will hopefully be in MUSA to hold us accountable as well. In addition to that, I'm always holding Kayla accountable and she's always holding me accountable. Our team does have a sense of accountability as well. Now, in terms of us being the only ones running, there was always the chance for independents to run as well. This just shows how much both of us think we're suited for the position and why we would do such a great job at the position.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for the candidates for the answers. And right, so for the audience, I would like to remind again, please avoid making disrespectful remarks for the candidates, and do drop in any questions if you have. So yeah, and because this session's gonna end at 5:02 for the Q&A session. Um, right. Okay. For Haru, actually, we have a comment down from Haru. As you may or may not know, there has been many discrimination in laws in the past years, and especially this year in the head position. So, as head, if you are elected, how are you planning to avoid any biases and discrimination being made among your team members?
Kayla, do you want to start off?
Right. So as we mentioned, we will be having a team which we will recruit professionally and in the best way possible. And we do have open discussion and we will also work together as a team. We do have each other to remind that this is what we're supposed to be doing. And we also have the constitution and the handbook in mind. And we are working at the best interest of the students, international students.
And also, in
That
order
is
to
our
eliminate
answer.
bias, yeah, to add
Mm-hmm.
to that, in order to eliminate any bias, I think the main key would be open communication with other members of the team as well. We will also be collecting feedback from the students themselves. So if they think that we are being biased or discriminating in any way whatsoever, we will take that very seriously and we will work on that. Now, in terms of being made among your team members is a huge impact on mental health of the OB. We believe that the mental health of all OBs and us in general is so important as well, just as important as anyone else's mental health being. So we won't be doing anything that disrupts the mental well-being of the students and the OBs as well. We have a welfare officer who will make a point of this for sure as well. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, so I hope this answers your question, Haru. So if you want a follow up, you can drop it down as well. Okay. Um. Right. We have another one. Uh. Could the candidates explain how you felt when you are representing different nations and working together?
By this, do you mean how we would feel like if we are heads of MUIS? The idea of representing the different nations is something that I actually value so much because diversity is something that I personally love. So for me, I would feel, sorry about that. For me, I feel a sense of honor representing the different nations. I'll have Kayla elaborate on this a little bit more.
Yes, if we were to be given the opportunity, that means we will be obviously very happy and we will be working the best that we can in order to represent all the different nations, and we are given the opportunity to do the best thing that we can possibly do, given that opportunity to represent different nations.
Right. Thank you for
So
the answers. So, yeah, for the audience, you can continue to drop in any questions you have. So for the meantime, I think Nida still have a question. So yeah, Nida, you can proceed.
Yeah. Okay. So remember you guys said an initiative about what's up MUISS. I really like that idea. Um, but I want to know like how is it going to be moderated? Who is going to moderate it and what are your guidelines for moderating it?
That's a good question. So the media department themselves will firstly be collecting the information that they want to use. After that, we want to make sure that the information is not biased in any way whatsoever. We want to go through the source of the information itself. So after the media department themselves would have moderated the information at a certain level, would definitely be passed into us, me and Kayla, where we will make sure that the sources add up as well. It won't be a short process whereby, let's say, they collect information one day and publish it the next day. It would be not that lengthy, but there will be a certain process where we moderate the information to ensure that there is no bias in that statement, basically. Kayla, do you want to elaborate anymore?
yes, and in terms of the workforce and moderator, which is why we do have a specialized department for it, which is the media department, and they do have their own subcoms to conduct the following actions. And us as the MUIS team, we just have to make sure that the information is not biased and it is informative and it is very engaging for the international students community. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, what I meant more of like was like there are a lot of political issues that will be in it, right? So it's going to be really hard, one, to fact check it, and second, to make sure that it does not offend anyone, and to make sure that you guys don't give light on the political part of it, but more on the human rights part of it, which is
Yep.
something that we're doing this year as well. Um, Other than that, you guys said something about TikTok. Yeah. So have you looked into the fact that there's a lot of platforms which are not available in certain countries and TikTok is banned in some countries? So how are you going to make sure that your content is always available to all students?
Well, so TikTok is banned in certain countries. However, in replacement of TikTok, we would have Instagram Reels, right? So when it comes to social media platforms, a lot of them are banned in different countries, and we can't really control that. However, we feel like if we use that reason to not use TikTok, we're missing out on a great opportunity because TikTok is definitely going to help us utilize the platform a lot better and reach audiences that we haven't reached before. Even if it is banned, certain people use VPNs as well to access TikTok anyway. Sometimes some people can't. So we will be utilizing this as much as we can.
Yeah, just a side note, VPN is illegal in few countries. So
Yeah, it is.
yeah, so you cannot rely on that. But
That's
yeah, I understand what you meant. Okay, so yep, that's about it.
Yeah.
Anything from the audience?
Thank you, Nida. So we'll move on to the last question of the day already. So we have another question from Farouk. So what would you do if an OB is not doing their job? Let's say an OB is not doing as what was promised in their manifesto, because this will affect the whole team.
Kayla, you want to take this question first?
All right, so firstly, we have gathered our team with a thorough process and open discussion, and we believe that everyone in our team will have the knowledge, the commitment, and the professionalism required. And Rashan and I are also applying an environment where we can fully be transparent to talk to each other and open to discussion, because the start of all decisions that we have made so far has always been an open discussion, anyways. And with this, then we will thoroughly, if an OBG is not doing their job, then we will check first, is this right, is this really happening, before we go out externally or whatever. We need to first find out if this is really happening, if the situation is really happening, before we do any further actions. And Rashwan, do you want to follow up on that?
Yep. So when an OB is not doing that job, when we're talking about the job description is basically explained by the handbook and the constitution. So if per the constitution they aren't doing what they're supposed to do, we will have to go with the constitutional approach and offer them a warning letter. However, if they are not doing something that they promised in their manifesto, like Kayla said, open communication is so important. And first, we want to understand why they aren't following through, and we want to understand what we can do as heads to help the whole team. Now, we will be minimizing the effect that this has on the whole team because the manifesto is pretty specific to that department. So first reach out, understand what's happening, and then work on a plan to make that manifesto promises come to fruition.
Right. Thank you, candidates, for the Q&A session. So it's coming to an end for this debate session. So for the audience and maybe the OBs, so if you guys have any follow-up questions that you want to ask, you can go to the official MUSA Instagram page and comment down on below the KYC series. Right? Okay. So thank you for the OBs for all the questions and also the audience for the questions. And now we're moving on to the closing statement. So Rashwan and Kyla, the floor is yours and you have 2.5 minutes.
All right. So firstly, I just want to say thank you for everyone who has attended the debate and sticking through up until the end. Also, thank you for the current MUISS heads for that questions. We really love the insight that we were able to gain from you guys as well. So looking forward to a lot of the initiatives that we will be having potentially if you're elected. Kayla?
Yeah. So we want to thank you everyone for coming today and the OBs as well. So thank you also the moderator. Thank you so much for everything, and we are looking forward to the potential stuff. And if you have any questions, feel free to visit our KYC profile and ask them to us. Thank you.
Yep.
Stay safe,
If you have any
everyone.
questions, please reach out. We're so much more than welcome to
Yes.
answer them. Thank you, guys.
Right. Okay. Thank you for the short and sweet closing statement from Rashwan and Kyla. So yeah, that's all for this debate session for the head of MUISS candidate. And before we end this, I want to remind you guys that the next debate session is for head of CNS, which will be at 5:30 p.m. Uh, Malaysia time. So yeah, feel free to check out and drop any questions you have for them as well. And thank you. Stay safe and take care. Thank you.